Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is Jake, and I'm back with Ryan Spadafora, and we're ready to kick off coaching call number 3, I believe. For Niche Site Project 3. So thanks for joining us. And Ryan, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Jake. How are you doing?
Good, man. Doing real well. Glad we could get back together. We're going to jump into a presentation here in a moment. But if you were with us last time, and I'm going to go ahead and make this, is that full screen for you now, Ryan?
It sure is, yeah.
Cool, man. When we left off last time, just to kind of recap for us and for everybody else that's listening, Ryan and I talked, we looked a little bit at sort of his 3 niches that we were considering for his site. We sort of knocked one off the list, which was harmonica. We got rid of that and thought that the market wasn't big enough and didn't really have enough keyword diversity there, and a few different things that where we decided bowling and baseball, both sort of on the training side of things, in both those sports. We're kind of looking at both those, which are things that Ryan has an interest in and some experience in. So we've narrowed it down to those 2. We took a look at those markets a little bit. Looked at our competitors last week. We looked in SEMrush a little bit to see who some of the other folks that are ranking for keywords that would be important to us, just to kind of know what we're up against and get a feel for that market overall, and if we felt like it was a good market, and we did. And so the task this week for Ryan, leading up to this call, and this is what we're going to spend our time on today, was digging in and doing a little bit more in-depth keyword research on both those markets as we get to the point where hopefully very soon we're going to make a decision on what Ryan's going to do as far as picking a niche for his site. And so I asked Ryan to come up with about 10 keywords for each and send those over to me so we could review a few of those on the call today, just to make sure that he's on the right track. Because as you may remember, Ryan's brand new to this. You know, he's never built a niche site before. He just got access to Longtail Platinum a couple weeks ago when we started this. So he's brand new to the software, which is sort of our keyword research tool that we use. So, you know, Ryan's a new guy. And so just want to make sure that he's on the right track and on the right path as far as the kinds of keywords that we're looking for. And that's what we're going to discuss today. And so I was talking to Ryan a little bit about that because I've been doing this for several years now. So sometimes you forget when you're brand new like that, you know, what it's like and how challenging it can be. So I'm just curious, Ryan, I want to hear your take on how did it go this week? How did you think it went? And what were some of the techniques that you used to find your keywords, and maybe some things that you found difficult, some things that were easier than you thought, or just some of your thoughts on the project?
It was good. It was using the techniques that you showed me on the last call. It took me a little bit to kind of get comfortable going back and forth between tools and everything. But once I started sort of getting the flow of it, it definitely became a lot more intuitive. I think one of the problems I had at first was I was just kind of scared to star keywords in Longtail Pro. I was like really being hard on all the keywords, and then I just, as time went on, I started to see which keywords were the good ones, and I got a little more comfortable, and I just started starring away.
Cool. So
yeah, it was good. And I feel pretty good about my search methods at this point.
Yeah. What did you do? I mean, what did you do to were you just doing stuff as far as seed keywords and all that? Were you just picking stuff off the top of your head? I know these are both topics you know well, or was there anything else you did as far as getting ideas and kind of getting the juices flowing a little bit?
At first, I was doing a lot of seed keyword stuff. Mm-hmm. But then as time went on, I kind of realized that I did know a lot about these subjects, and I just started thinking, what have I searched before?
Yeah.
And I started going down that path a little bit. So that definitely helped. And I also just looked at a lot of the competition. I dug into SEMrush a lot and kind of went through the competitors, and I went to their sites and dug around, and it just kept opening new doors. You know?
Cool. Did you do the paid plan, or were you just doing what they give you for free there?
I just did what they were giving me for free, but I think I've got to upgrade. I think because they did shut me off at a certain point.
They cut you out.
Yeah, but so I was doing it between work and home. So I was able to sort of cheat the system a little bit and get a few extra searches in there. But I also went on Moz and checked stuff out on there. And I have the Moz bar plugin or whatever. So I was using some of those metrics as well. But I definitely got I'm going to get a SEMrush plan going. So, cause it just seems like it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, definitely so, especially early on. It's one of those things where you don't have to, in my opinion, you don't have to keep it forever. Maybe it's something you keep for a month or two, because you can do a whole lot of damage as far as I do a lot of keyword binging on sites where I do the vast majority of it up front, and there's a little bit ongoing, but you do a big bulk of it early, and SEMrush can be a really helpful tool when you're doing that. So that's cool, man. And yeah, the Moz bar, I didn't even think to mention that, but I use that as well, just to kind of quickly see the domain authority. That's a little Chrome. At least I use Chrome. They might have it for Firefox too, but
they have it for Firefox too. But the Chrome one seems to, I think, works a little bit better.
Yeah, just a little free browser extension that you can get a little info on the sites that you're visiting for those that might be wondering what we're talking about there. So very cool. All right, man. Well, let's dive into it. So let's talk about. And like I said, today we're basically going to review a few of the keywords that you sent over to me from your work, and I'll tell you, what I see there and what I like about them, what I don't like about them, what concerns me, what excites me about them, that sort of thing. So, but before I do that, I want to lay a little bit more groundwork, because after this call, we're going to get into doing even more of what you just did. And I told you before we got on the line, you get faster as you go. You get more of a knack for this stuff as you go. So be encouraged about that. If it felt laborious, or you were talking about, uncertainty and that sort of thing, absolutely. Once we start seeing some success, and you're going to be successful in this, you'll start getting more confident about the keywords that you see. And it's weird. Like it's like another sense that takes over, where you just kind of see it, and you immediately just know the kind of content you would create for that keyword, and you just do a quick scan, and like you have a really good feeling about it. Anyway, you'll get to that point. So it won't always be as difficult as it was. So that's the good news. But I want to talk a little bit about keyword mindset. And Ryan, I've got several slides in here today, and I think this is going to be helpful for you, but please feel free to stop me as always if you have questions or clarification or whatever. Yeah. So first of all, and I think we've talked about this, but I just want to be clear on this. When we talk about this site and our site plan overall, our mindset is that we're creating a collection of keywords that fit under our umbrella. They fit in our niche. And that's what we've been talking about all along. And it's important, because I want to make sure that you understand it's not about one keyword. And sometimes it's exciting to find like a really good keyword that fits in your niche, and that's great. But it's not all about one keyword, because it's like the old adage of putting all your eggs in one basket. It's kind of like that. If things don't work out with that one big keyword that you were really holding on to, you're kind of screwed, So we're thinking about it as a collection of keywords. And I've seen that come up a lot, or these types of questions come up a lot on the in the Facebook group there that we started with this niche site project. Other people asking about this keyword or that keyword, and that's all well and good. But we don't want to base a site off of one big keyword. That's for sure. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it, is just building this collection of related ideas, basically.
Would that be what you would call like a micro niche site, or?
Probably, yeah. And. Okay. And a lot of folks, and Spencer used to do it this way too, and he doesn't really anymore. This idea of, he would talk about like a primary keyword a few years back, and I think when him and Perrin did this 3 or 4 years ago, they kind of used their homepage as like this really long guide to whatever their main target keyword was, what they called like their primary keyword, which I think was best safety razor or something like that. It was like a shaving site. And so it was this big content page. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I just don't do that. And we're not going to do that. Like our homepage is not going to be concerned about a keyword at all. It's going to be more of like a hub of the site. Like we may get to where we have sort of an opt-in form, but I envision it as, at the very least, it'll be sort of a blog roll of like our most recent post that we've put out. But I also like to create like, I'm getting a little bit ahead, but I like to create like custom images of what I consider like my anchor posts, like the things that I think are like my best work, and sort of feature them on the homepage and make it look real sharp. So like when you're on the homepage, like you kind of see your options for these are the things I should be looking at on my site. It's sort of that hub. I'm not worried about a keyword, and so the keywords are the posts themselves. And so that definitely has shifted. And so anything that's different than that, I think is a little bit too narrow when we're talking about just targeting one or two keywords. Like I said, I'd like to get to where we're targeting at least 100 different keywords. So yeah, absolutely. And then keywords serve different purposes. And I think it's important to get this out in the open and just understand this as you're looking into stuff. Some are perfect for monetizing things. And this is what we call buyer keywords. And we're going to look at one or two that you sent over like this. So a lot of times those are, things that have best in it. So best whatever, baseball glove, best bowling ball for a certain type of person or something like that. Those would be buyer keywords. Those are people that are very likely looking to buy that item very soon, just based on the nature of that search. They're wanting to find the best one because they're thinking about buying one. And so those are great keywords for monetizing through affiliate products or even your own products, maybe down the road, that sort of thing. Other keywords are just about getting easy traffic. And these are very low competition keywords that you may not even see a connection to monetization. So they're not about a product at all. It might be teaching you how to do something about the sport, that sort of thing. And we're going to look at one of those that you sent over. And that's fine because those are still important, even if you don't, and on those pages, you can have AdSense ads and things like that to monetize some of that traffic. But even if you don't do that, we're eventually going to get to the point where we have lead magnets that we're sending people. And basically what that is something for free that we give you in exchange for your email, and so it might be a pop-up or something like that about how to get better at bowling or some real specific thing that will teach you that sort of thing, like a free guide to something. So getting that easy traffic does a couple of things. One, when you get to that point, it gives you an opportunity to collect a lead. So that's just an email address on our list that in the future, when we put out more content, we can contact that person and let them know. And it just gives you an opportunity to get a reader, somebody that you really answer their question, and it might be sort of an obscure, long tail kind of search, but we have a really good piece of content. And they're like, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. What is this site anyway? And they start looking around, and suddenly they become a fan. They're on to other stuff. So that sort of stuff we shouldn't overlook. That's like the really low hanging fruit, these very low competition keywords. And really, to me, it's just about getting easy traffic. That's sort of the main purpose of that type of a keyword. Next is some are great for sharing and attracting links. And so a lot of times these are big list type posts or listicles, as some people call them, which I think is an awkward word. Or, just really unique content of some sort, so getting an infographic created or some unique spin on a topic or something like that. But some keywords are perfect for that, and you'll kind of see that in them. And again, it's not really about monetizing at all. I mean, sometimes on those pages, you really won't even have anything about monetizing. It's more just about, when people start sharing that and they start linking to that helps the site overall. It's kind of like the rising tide raises all boats, or however they say it, because from there you can sort of interlink to your other pages and that sort of thing. And so just that good link juice and social sharing and stuff pointing to our site is a good sign. And so if that's all that keyword does for us, that's a winner. Yeah, it's a great thing. We're not worried about monetizing every single keyword. And then others finally just make sense. And this is why knowing your niche is a big help. And that's why it was high on our list. I guess the first thing really on our list when we went to pick a niche, because if you don't know the niche well, or you're just learning it, a lot of times you overlook this stuff or you're oblivious to it, but you kind of know, as somebody who's bowled before and somebody who plays baseball and played at a high level, you know the things that make sense for that audience. And so even if there isn't any keyword volume at all or whatever, you just kind of know that somebody that's interested in this would like to know it because you like to know it and you're kind of like your audience. Right. It makes sense, and you just go after it, because again, it's a good thing for building up readership and loyalty. And sometimes it works out way better than you planned. And I'm going to show you an example of that in just a moment. So does that make sense as far as the different purposes that keywords can serve?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. And then not just low competition. and not just high volume. And that's where this kind of goes into the last point I was saying, that others just make sense. So sometimes it does make sense to go after higher competition stuff, and it's not the core of what we're going to do. But absolutely, there's some stuff that we're going to target where at the outset we think, it's going to be challenging to rank for that, but it makes sense to do it. You know, it would be awkward if we have, just an example off the top of my head, like if we go into baseball and we have all these things that are sort of long tail keywords about really specific things about hitting, you know, how to hit for power and how to hit to the opposite field, and these things that are like kind of real specific, but we don't have like a big tutorial on just being a better hitter. Like whatever we find is sort of the most general phrase that people search in that category. We don't even have a page for that. It's just weird. You know what I mean? Like, so it makes sense to have that. If you're going to have all these longer tail stuff, you should have like the big tail one too, even if we don't rank for it. And I think our plan would be is that eventually we're going to rank for it, but it might take a while. So it's sort of a long-term play. So let me jump out of this presentation for a second, because I want to show you where I did this. Actually, let me show you in Longtail Pro. And this is why I've become like a big fan or a big believer in the power of low volume keywords, where, you know, the search volume doesn't need to be high to target it. I used to think when I started doing this, when I was in your shoes, I was always looking for stuff that was searched like 1,000 times a month or more, you know, thinking that it needed to have a high search volume to really get any traffic. And I found that that's not the case at all. And sometimes, and what I'm about to show you, I don't even fully understand why it works the way that it does, but it's a testament to why doing the stuff that makes sense to your audience when you know your audience is always a good idea. And so, as you know, and some people listening to this know, because this is the one site that I'm sort of public about. The first site that I did, and I use for a lot of examples on the Longtail Pro blog, is ballparksavvy.com, which, don't judge me for anything you read on there. Most of it was written like in 2008. Okay. So I'm sure my jokes and stuff have changed and all that.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
I'm kind of a sarcastic writer, so whatever. But so that site is, you know, very much connected to me. I share some stuff of me taking my kids to games and stuff like that. And actually, once I had kids a few years ago, I realized, and I go to a lot of Reds games and all that, I realized that going to a game with a baby or a little kid is just way different than going with just your wife or going with some friends. You know, there's a lot of crap to think about, like strollers and stuff you can bring in for your kid and all that kind of crap. And I thought, well, obviously I'm not the only one with kids that goes to baseball games. So I thought, what's out there? So I looked, and there wasn't a whole lot out there, at least that was comprehensive. And so I just did it. I wrote the ultimate guide to taking kids to a baseball game. And I actually put this in I put a little list here of the keywords we're going to review later. But this one here, this taking kids to a baseball game, which was kind of the main keyword I targeted. The very first result is mine, which I'll show you here in a second. Yeah, but you can see the search volume is 0 for this, according to Google. I think at the time when I did it, it said 10. But either way, it wasn't much. And it's pretty competitive, or somewhat competitive. You know, it's a 34 KC score, but I just did it because, like I said, it makes sense, you know? And what's amazing is that, this page actually, so this baseball season is a very seasonal site. So I think of the baseball season as April 1st to October 1st, basically, right? So that's the 80% of the traffic this site gets is during that time frame. So during that time frame this year, this page, the ultimate guide of taking kids to a baseball game, where in my mind, my primary keyword had 0 searches, had 56,000 page views. And that, whatever that is, 6-month time span, was by far and away more than double the next page of my site as far as the amount of traffic that it received. So it's by far and away over the last 2 or 3 years has been the most visited thing on my site. And so this is sort of the homepage of the site, whatever. And like I said, I have a road trip guide and that sort of thing. But I just want to show you this briefly. There's me. This is a few years ago, before we even had a third kid, at opening day. But it's an enormous guide, okay? And so I give some general guidelines, but ultimately, Ryan, I went down and I went to every team's FAQ page and whatever information they had and any special rules they had about kids. I just did it in alpha order. This is an enormous page. It's like 8,000 words or something. And everything you need to know, you scroll down to that team and it tells you everything that's specific to taking kids to a game. So it truly is like the ultimate guide to taking kids to a game. And just because of that, I've picked up links from like parenting sites and things like that, have some high authority. So it's been a good asset there. And then as I say, and I don't even understand it, because when I look at it now, I think all like the stuff I get traffic from are all of these keywords that are like 5 and 10 searches a month, just really specific stuff, Can you take a diaper bag into a Cardinals game? That sort of stuff. Like this just pops up, because it's got links pointing to it and everything you need to know is covered. And so I get traffic from, I don't even know what all I get traffic from, but probably literally thousands of different keywords that made up those 56,000 visits. And so, but I knew that this just made sense for the audience. So I just went with it. And this is where we talk about going with your gut. And so I just wanted to show you an example of that doesn't just, I don't just say that to, tickle our ears and think, oh, that sounds nice because it's the right thing to do for your audience, but it actually works. When you really know your market and you do this sort of stuff, it can really turn into a success, even if the search volume doesn't look like it. Trust your instinct and go for it, okay? So that's important to keep in mind. So don't be afraid to throw a star on something that has a really low search volume. I'm not too worried about it because there's going to be a lot of similar keywords and all that. And so if everything else is there, go for it for sure. Cool?
Cool.
All right, let me jump back here. Okay. And I'll speed things up, man. I get wordy on this stuff.
Don't worry about it.
All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit of stuff, and a couple of these. I don't know. Did you have a chance to? I think I sent it to you in email. I definitely put it in the blog post about watching a replay of a webinar we did back in the fall. Did you get a chance to see that?
Yep.
Okay. Because there's going to be a test. No, I'm just kidding. These next 2 slides come from that webinar, but I just wanted to rehash them and sort of explain it for you on the call, and then just for everybody else listening as well, because I think they're relevant for where we're at this point in the process. And as you get into deeper keyword research, the stuff I'm about to share, I think is going to be really helpful for your mindset and taking the keywords that you found and expanding that further and further and further. All right. So how to make keywords have a longer tail, keyword modifiers. And what that means is, I'm going to show you an example in just a minute, but it's basically taking sort of the base keywords like a baseball glove or a bowling ball or a bowling bag or something like that, and adding things to the beginning and the end of it to make it have a longer tail, to make it a more specific search phrase. So beyond just bowling bag, which we're not going to rank for because it's a product type keyword, what other kind of stuff are people looking for with bowling bag? And the purpose behind that is because you find lower competition stuff, obviously, because it's more specific, and you get more targeted buyer intent. So you know a lot more about that searcher based on what they search for. And this is actually a sneak peek into Longtail University. For those that are watching along and don't have Longtail University, this is a little free snippet here. But this is some buying footprints, some examples of what I'm talking about. So I talked about best before, but we've also got for men, for women. So you think about, bowling shoes for men, best bowling shoes for men, best bowling shoes for women. Down at the bottom, I like price ranges under a certain price range. Best laptop under $500, best bowling ball under $100, or whatever the typical price range is for the item you're talking about. Another one that's in there kind of in the middle, it says for insert hobby here. So, best, bowling's not the best example, but like it talks about runners in this example. So like if that was your niche, the best thing for people in this situation, or the best, the best shoes for runners, or the best shoes for baseball players, that sort of thing. So adding these kind of modifiers before and after your keywords is really great for your seed keywords. Also using the suggestion tools like we talked about, things like that. But it really kind of opens you up to some new ideas by doing that. And you'll really find some real gems by doing that as well. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. Some of these on here I definitely used, and then some are good ideas that I didn't. Like the pricing, I definitely didn't do that. Like under 500 type of thing. So that's good to look into.
You'll almost always find that kind of stuff, and it's really good. What I like to do with those a lot of times is and we'll talk about this in a moment when we look at your keywords, but like if I'm doing like a buyer's guide, like the best baseball bat or something like that, just as an example, I like to do like the subheaders, like subcategories all in one big guide. And that's where I put some of these things in. So sometimes I'll make them their own page, but a lot of times I might do, how to pick the best baseball bat for you or something like that. And I talk about some things. And then down below, if I find that there's a good keyword where a lot of people are searching for the best bat under $200 or something like that, I might have in there, what's the best bat for under $200, and sort of a budget guide, that sort of thing, and just put it all on one page. So a lot of times that's, kind of the approach you can take with some of these guys. If they're not sort of big enough to live by themselves independently and make up their own page, definitely you can work them into one big guide and rank for a bunch of different keywords like we talked about earlier. And I've seen that work for my own sites. So, but yeah, just something to take a look at and think about. And this is an example here from Longtail Pro, not related to the niches that we're looking at. But again, this one is best running shoes for women with flat feet is what that says. If you can't read it up at the top, shows a KC of 22, 320 searches a month. And so it's a low competition keyword with actually pretty decent search volume, but it's very specific with these modifiers. It's got the best running shoes for women, so, by gender, and then with flat feet with a particular condition in this case, so they've really narrowed it down. And like I talked about with buyer intent, even if we're not selling products directly, you still just know so much more about that visitor that you know how to talk to them. When you're writing, the kind of offers to make them. So we talked about, we'll get to the point where we have lead magnets and things like that. You really know a lot about this person. So you're not going to present them a lead magnet that's sort of designed for men. We might have the guide to running for women and the guide to running for men. And this is probably a woman or a man shopping for a woman, but you get what I'm saying. You have more intelligence about that visitor when you dig into these kind of keywords, and it's easier to get the traffic. So it's really a no-brainer. All right, let's move on here. So analyzing your competition. Let's talk about the details of what I'm looking for when we look in Longtail Platinum, and you can sort of use this as a guide as well. Again, I'm a gut guy more and more. The more I do this, if one or two of these doesn't meet, but I feel like it's the right kind of keyword or I just feel good about it, I'll do it anyway. So this isn't like a hard and fast, like I always throw it out if it doesn't meet this. But it's good to have some guidelines in mind when you're looking at things. So when we pull up these keywords in Longtail Pro in just a moment, we're looking to target keywords that have weak and irrelevant results. And that's irrelevant is sort of the important thing that we'll look at. And so we're looking at, are they using the exact keyword, the exact phrase in their page title or parts of it or not at all? And how many results are not using it? Because, I think we talked about this a little bit last week. You could see a super authoritative site in the results, but if the page that's actually ranking has nothing, let's look at the example from a moment ago about running shoes for women with flat feet. It could be Nike's site that's ranking for that, but if the page that's ranking for it has nothing to do with women or nothing to do with women with flat feet, it's really not that big of a deal because it's not super relevant. So that sort of checks, that sort of overrides everything else. You want to see irrelevant results there because that is a sign of weakness for sure. Another thing that I look for, which is a good sign to me, is when I see forums or discussion boards in the top 10 results. And sometimes those can have authority on their domain and all that, domain authority and some of those numbers. And even the KC score might show them decent, but maybe it's just a personal preference thing. I just think those are kind of weak results. I think when you have, whoever, Jimbo and Billy Bob bantering back and forth about what the best hunting rifle is, that if I wanted to write the guide to the best hunting rifle, that I could find the sources and do a much better job than Jimbo and Billy Bob, giving their opinions. So that's the way I feel about it. If I see a forum, I think that's weak. Multiple pages that have zero juice page links is ideal. And we're talking about the top 10 results that you'll see in Longtail Platinum. So that's just links pointing to the site that are passing juice, as they say. So I guess like do follow links, which getting kind of technical, but basically just links that are sort of sharing authority. It's just your typical backlink. And even the number just zero means they don't have any like real links pointing to that page at all, which is a great sign because that tells me that I don't need any links to rank for it. Or as a bonus, if I am able to get some links pointing to this page, or even just do my own internal linking, which we'll talk more about that down the road, link to it from other relevant pages on my site, it's probably enough to get me in the top 10. And then this plays to the first point, several results that fail to use the exact keyword in the title. And in some case, again, this goes back a little bit to the gut. There's synonyms, and Google is much, much better about understanding natural language and knowing that lesson and instruction are very similar things and that sort of thing. So you'll kind of get an idea for it. But again, it just speaks to looking for irrelevant stuff. And then 2 or more pages in the top 10 that have page authority under 30. And that's a Moz number that comes in, and you'll see that in Longtail Platinum. But that's just a good sign for us is that you don't need a ton of authority to rank. And then generally speaking, an average KC under 30. All right. And so I just wanted to show a quick example here. This keyword, if anybody having trouble reading it on your screen, says how to lose weight to fit into a dress is the keyword. 20 times a month it's searched. 23 was the KC score. And I highlighted a couple of results that stuck out to me. The second one is some kind of discussion board on like a wedding site. So it says boards.weddingbee, whatever. And then the title is dress does not fit, wedding in 3 days. Like that's the name of the page. Well, that's not super relevant. That's a weak result, even though it has really high domain authority. This doesn't scare me at all. Like if I had something in this weight loss niche or whatever, I would totally go after this keyword. Like it's just right for the pickings. And then same thing, Yahoo Answers is the 10th result. And Yahoo Answers is just whoever wants to throw out their opinion, throw it out. Somebody asks a question to the world and people just start giving them random answers. I just think those are weak results. And so anyway, to me, that's something where I'm like, whatever, I could definitely do something better than this. And so absolutely, I'd target that keyword. So we kind of went through a lot, but in general, does that approach make sense when you're looking at the details of your competitors in the top 10?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, juice links and things like that wasn't something I was really paying too much attention to. So it'll be good to go back through and pay a little bit of attention to that. And even page authority versus domain authority, I wasn't exactly clear on.
Yeah, a couple things to point out about that. Page authority, when you see page authority of 1, my understanding is that means that page authority has just not yet been assigned.
Okay.
So like the page is newer, or for whatever reason, Moz doesn't have a page authority for that page. So that's why it says 1. And so 1 would be invalid.
Okay.
And I've heard Spencer say this before. He says that if it's a page authority of 1, just to get an idea, he'll take the domain authority and divide it in half. So like that wedding bee result that shows a domain authority of 68, but the page authority is 1. Spencer would guesstimate that page authority would be a 34 because it's 68 cut in half, whatever. So just to give you a rough idea.
Yeah. So well, I guess that does seem to make sense when you go through those results. Actually, 12 versus right. 34, 29 versus 56, 47 versus 91. It's not. Yeah,
it'll give you a good idea.
Okay.
That's the thought on that. And then the other thing I was going to say is that, I don't know the inner workings of Moz's page and domain authority, but I'm very confident that in page authority, they take into account the quality of links and different things pointing to that. Like that's what helps build the authority of a site and the authority of a page. And so page authority to me is even more important than juice links, because juice links is just a number, and links are about, they're about the relevance and sort of the power of the link. And we talked a little bit about that last week, I believe. Stuff runs together on me. So if I assume I told you something I didn't, let me know. But, if you get 100 links from just horrible sites with no authority and whatever, spammy links, like that's bad. But that might still show, it might count as a link, but it's not a good link. But page authority would include that. Like it would, I might have a chunk of links like that, but they're all low authority and they're not passing much authority to me. So my page authority is still low. So really the page authority is the more important number. Gotcha. But for me, like I said, I look at the R score, the KC score, which sort of takes all of these into account, and the relevance. Like that's kind of what it's a combination of, is all of these different numbers you see and how relevant the results are to the keyword. And so to me, that's sort of the ultimate number. That times my gut, divide it in half, and then you take the square root, and then I decide whether or not to click the start button. Does that sound easy enough?
Perfect.
But no, seriously, does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, general guidelines. Check the competition. And this is just just a little chart here just to show you. You may have seen this elsewhere, but this is sort of how we scale it on our KC score. So anything below 30, we consider it low competition. 30 to 40 doesn't mean that it's out of consideration at all. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult, maybe take a little bit longer, more effort, that sort of thing. And then once you're above that, we might do some keywords like that if they make sense for the audience, like we talked about, but we won't really have our fingers crossed waiting to rank really highly for those. We just know that it was a good idea for our readers. So, all right. So let me bounce out real quick to Longtail Pro Longtail Platinum. And I want to take a look at a few of the keywords that you sent me.
Sure.
And we'll talk about those. And so I just pulled a smattering of them, and we'll go into these examples. And I'll sort of read the things. Somebody had commented on our last video about my screen capture resolution or whatever wasn't the best. So I'll kind of read these aloud for those that are following, because the font can be a little small depending on your screen size and all that. So as I get into it, I'll try to remember to read what I'm looking at. All right. So let's just take a look at this first one here. So bowling tips for beginners. And honestly, I can't remember. Did I throw this one in there on my own, Ryan, or did you send this one to me?
I could tell you right now. No, I gave that one to you.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this one, 390 searches a month. The KC for me pulled back at 34. I think you sent it pulled back a little bit lower for you, which may have that number can change. Usually it's not by more than a point or two very often. And how it would change is just typically if the top 10 results change, which, as you know, Google results change all the time. It's not like it's a snapshot that stays forever. And maybe today there's sort of a crappy result at number 10, and tomorrow that gets replaced by like a pretty good result that might bump the KC score up or down, or you know what I'm saying, just depending on that circumstance. So if there's some variance, it's not that big of a deal. But let's take a look at this just as a whole and some of the details. So bowling tips for beginners. First thing is, I like the keyword just because it makes sense. If we were to go into the bowling niche, bowling tips for beginners is just like, that's something we would have to cover, right? You know, I mean, you're going to talk about bowling tips. That's sort of like almost like a sub niche, you know, bowling tips. And like we'd do a lot of keywords inside of that. And so bowling tips for beginners, I would probably have a full page dedicated just to that, where you talk about some of the lingo and then you go into some of the basic tips and that sort of thing. So this is one of those keywords I put it on here because I would just say, if this is my site, we were doing bowling, yeah, let's just do it. Like maybe we'll rank, maybe we won't. Like it's somewhere probably creeps into the sort of medium, moderate competition, and that's fine. But there are some good signs on here. So let me tell you what I see. First of all, hub pages. Let me click on this. I think hub pages are just like random people can sort of start a blog and throw up a hub page kind of thing, which, you know, whatever. I mean, the hub page domain has a lot of authority because it's sort of like that. But yeah, I don't think this is that great of a result. I mean, it looks decent on paper, but I don't know, not that great. But the things that I did look at before, so we've got bowlingtechniques.net, beginnerbowlingtips.com, and these are these keyword focused domains, which, you know, doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad site or anything. It just, you immediately know that is like a niche site. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't have some big bowling brand who decided to call their website beginnerbowlingtips.com, you know, and you click on it. And I can't even think of a bowling brand right now, but you know what I'm saying.
I feel really bad if the guy who created that site's listening right now. He probably is.
Yeah, you know what? I thought about this before we went on the call, and I was like, you know, I say some stuff that I'm kind of teasing, but I'm kind of serious. But seriously, I mean, I guess those odds are somewhat slim. But if somebody's listening to this site or our call here, and I'm like ripping on your site, I'm not really ripping on your site. I'm being a little bit dramatic here, but again, I'm not saying it's a crappy site. I haven't even looked at the site. But here's what I do know: the domain authority of both those I just mentioned is 13, which is low. That's something you could get to in not a lot of time, a year or so, I would say. The page authority is below 30. So you remember that was in our criteria that we want to see 2 or more pages with page authority below 30 in our top 10. And we see several. So we can take out the 1 here because that doesn't count. We've got a 26, a 28, a 15, and a 25. So those are all good signs. So this bottom half, these are pretty low competition stuff. And you can see the KC score here reflects that, 19 and 16 for those two. And so what I'm looking for, we talked about this a little bit last week when we were talking about just the market as a whole, but I want to see other guys that are like me that are ranking for it, because when I see that, I'm confident in knowing that if they could do it, you know what, if I go look at this page, I could build something better and I could outrank these guys. And maybe I don't, but I feel like I can, and I've done it time and time again. And so it doesn't scare me at all. So I would absolutely go for this one because it makes sense. And because I'm seeing, I've got several pages here with no juice page links. That was another thing we talked about. The KC score is iffy. It's a little bit higher than we'd say, but everything else is pointing to saying yes. And even if the KC score in this case was 50, I would still do it, because on my site that's going to be about training you how to bowl, if I don't have a page on there that's about bowling tips for beginners, what the heck kind of site do I have? You know what I'm saying? So we just do it anyway. So that's my thoughts on that one. What does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that?
No, yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. Let me talk about this one here is best baseball equipment bags. I'm not a huge fan of this one. Now, the search volume's 10, and that's fine. That's low, but whatever. I talked about that before. I gave my spiel about why I don't really care about that. So that doesn't concern me. The KC score is 24, which is good. The thing that concerns me about this one is I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe this is like a regional thing. Maybe we're about to just learn something about each other and where we live. But when I talk, I would never say, and I played baseball for a lot of years, I would never say a baseball equipment bag. Like, that's just not what I say. Like, I always called it a bat bag, and that's what I carried all my stuff in. Do you call it a bat bag, or what do you call it?
Yeah, bat bag. I don't know what I would call it, but that in general, this is a question that I did have.
Okay.
There are so many dumb keywords. I mean, it just, like, I would never title an article what this keyword is. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
How do you approach that? Like, because there's some really, like, keywords that seem like they're good, and then the wording of it is like, well, if I titled a blog article this exact keyword,
Yeah.
it would, like, people would think that, I'm maybe not the brightest guy.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I was getting to with this one. Like, I would never say best baseball equipment bags. And I don't know that many people do. And again, maybe I'm wrong, but I was kind of looking on these things, and there's a couple things that say equipment bags. But this first one says baseball and softball bat bags, and then it says buy equipment, that sort of thing. Like, it's not really talking about like an equipment bag. And so to me, it's like, and you'll find this where it's sort of a less popular way to say something. And so it's got a little bit of search volume, but really what they're talking about is called something else. So like in this case, we would dig a little bit, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the most common phrase isn't a bat bag. Maybe people call it a baseball bag, which is fine. I submit the fact that I could be in the minority. But whatever that is, we sort of want to look a level up when we see a keyword like this, and we want to find what the more common phrase is. So like, I know that most people don't call it a baseball equipment bag. That just sounds awkward. And so I would just sort of throw it out for that reason, because it's basically a synonym of something else. And my thought is that if we find, and we'll look at best baseball bags in a minute, which I've also got on the list, and I like that one a lot better. So if we went after something that seems more popular and it has a higher search volume and all that, I sort of think that we can also rank for best baseball equipment bags, because maybe the word equipment sneaks into our content a time or two or whatever, but we don't even really worry about it. It just kind of happens naturally. And so I didn't do this, but I wouldn't doubt if there's some sites in common here. If we look at these two that are in the top 10, there's probably some of these guys that are ranking for both, would be my guess. And so you'll see that with things that are like really similar. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to point that one out. I wouldn't worry about that. And like you said, if it is something that's awkward to say, I'll find a different way to say it, or maybe just rethink that keyword in its entirety, or, just get as close as I can. Like if I have to switch around a couple of words or that sort of thing, just do it. Just do what's better for the human visitor.
Right.
You don't want to say something that's like just sounds weird to say.
Right.
So that's a good rule of thumb to follow. So, all right. So makes sense on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at, since we're here, best baseball bags, and this one has search volume of 90, KC of 27. It's a good buyer keyword, right? Best in front of it means that they're looking for a baseball bag. They're wanting to see reviews, things like that. Here's what I see on this one. This one I'm a little bit wishy-washy on. I would probably go after it, but here's what I see. So these first results, the first one is Amazon, which is, I don't know. I guess I'm okay with that. So obviously these are products. The second one is also products. I looked at that Home Run Monkey. It's
Home
like
Run
an
Monkey.
e-commerce.
Yeah.
It takes you right to like a page with, just gear where you buy it and add it to your cart and that sort of thing. But the next one, the fourth one down, is baseballdiamond.com. This has a domain authority of 19, page authority of 19. And this actually is just a niche site. So if I click on this, pull it up real quick, you can tell, and you go down and they even have these buy from Amazon buttons, which whatever. So, they're not actually selling products. They're just sending you to Amazon and they kind of break it down by types and the different brands and stuff like that. And so again, when I see that and it's lower authority and all that, that's when I think, yeah, I can do this. So just because that result is there, that's enough for me, because it makes sense as far as our audience, it makes sense to do that content. It's a very good buyer keyword. The competitiveness score overall is good. And I see at least one niche site that's ranking there that meets sort of my standards as far as low authority and all that. So I think, you know what, we should do it, because I think we've got a shot to rank for it. But I wouldn't go bet in my house that we're going to rank for this, because even below that, some of these other results, there are a couple of YouTube results, but then we get down to Dick's Sporting Goods and its products. And one of these other ones, this Baseball Warehouse, I think was a product page. So there's a little bit of danger there. And when you talk about e-commerce keywords, and we might have exchanged an email about that, but when you're, you go look for something, even if the KC score is low, but all the results you're seeing are from whatever, it's product pages on Walmart and Toys R Us and Amazon and all that stuff. When you just go search baseball bat or something like that, you have no shot of ranking for that. Unless you're like an e-commerce store that sells them, maybe you could get there. But if you're not selling products, just forget about it. And so that's a bit of a red flag. But that one, just because there's somebody that kind of broke into it, makes me think that I could break into it too.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it does. One quick question. So YouTube, what's your feelings on that? Because I would like to make YouTube a part of my media plan for my site. And
yeah.
What do you feel when you start to see YouTube results coming in?
Yeah, you see them quite a bit, and I'm sort of indifferent about it. Like, I don't think that it's bad. I don't think that it's great as far as like evaluating that keyword. Like, you can outrank YouTube. I think Google, I think, does a good job of stuff that sort of makes sense to have a video. A lot of like tutorial type stuff, they'll throw a YouTube video or two in the rankings and whatever. I'm curious, just based on what you said, are you thinking that you would sort of do, like, would you have the ability to record videos of yourself reviewing products or like demonstrating techniques, that kind of stuff? Or like, what were you thinking? Yeah,
both of those things, really.
Okay.
I definitely thought I'd like to do that. Seems to, I don't know.
Yeah.
If that's a good idea or not, I don't think it would hurt.
Oh, I think it's a great idea. I mean, okay. Yeah, like it's great to hear that. A lot of people don't have the either like equipment, and really you don't need special stuff. I mean, to do it, but you got to have like somebody to film you, and then some people are just too shy to do it. Frankly, they don't see themselves on camera, that sort of thing. So, if you've got both those things covered, I mean, obviously the two niches that we're talking about, there's tons of opportunity there, and so. Yeah, and I've got some experience there, so that's going to be exciting, and I think that's going to be a big leg up for us, actually. So I'm glad.
Oh, good. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've written some about that, but we've used YouTube for Longtail Pro, and I learned a lot about it and just sort of the marketing side of it in the last 4 or 5 months or whatever. So I'll have a lot of good stuff for you there. But no, I think it's great. And then a lot of times, and I've done this before with like Longtail Pro stuff, is like if I see YouTube videos are ranking, or even if not, I just feel like doing this, and I go write like a big guide to buying a baseball bag or something like that for this keyword, but I see videos ranking as well, I might go do a video too, just to kind of double my chances of ranking. And essentially in the video, if I'm showing a particular bag or just talking about it, I will like record myself on video sort of summarizing what I say in the article and just make a video, and so I've got 2 shots at ranking rather than 1, and totally nothing wrong with that. I've done that plenty of times, and you get traffic in 2 places for doing research on one thing.
Yeah, cool.
So that's the simplest way to do YouTube, but there's a lot to it that we can do as well. But good question though. All right, this one, bowling lessons. I'm gonna say that I'm not a huge fan of it, and I sort of just picked ones of this list that you sent me. I know you sent me more keywords than this. I sort of picked ones out. I think a lot of the other ones you sent me were very good. We talked about it a little bit before we started the call. I just wanted to pick ones out that I felt like I had a little bit different angle or something different I could talk about with it. I kind of found a different issue. The only reason that this kind of keyword concerns me is when I hear bowling lessons, or let me ask you this. When you go to Google, if you went to Google and searched bowling lessons and that's what you search, what would you be expecting to find?
I might be expecting to find maybe some local results for people that are offering lessons, and then videos probably, I would think.
No, that's good. And that's pretty much what I would say too, which is why it concerns me. And I clicked on a couple of these and they were, I think it's based on like the server that this comes from. So it wasn't local to me because I'm sort of in Longtail Platinum, and it was some other random, like Minnesota or something. But anyway, so your results may look quite different than this, but when I'm starting to see local results, or even if I just see one or two, but in my brain, putting myself in the seat of the searcher, if I'm expecting to find local results, I kind of feel like that eventually Google's going to get there to where that shows me local results. So if this keyword was bowling lessons online, or online bowling lessons, or bowling lesson videos, or something like that, I would be all on board for it. But when I think a searcher searches bowling lessons, I think what they're looking for is somewhere around them that offers bowling lessons. And so there might be other stuff that ranks and all that, and the KC and then the search volume is good, and all the other metrics are fine. So maybe you could do it. I don't know. It wouldn't be high on my list. Like I would still throw a star next to it probably and keep it for later. And maybe we get there. It's so kind of general. I would almost be looking for a longer tail version of it, like I mentioned earlier, that I would feel a lot stronger about. Because when I just, you really don't know exactly what they're looking for when they just search bowling lessons. It's kind of general. Are they looking for videos? Are they looking local? Or are they looking, whatever. So anyway, so that one doesn't excite me so much, but I'm not saying that, we would never target it. Okay, let's do a couple more real quick. So finger grips for bowling balls. This one's got a KC score of 15, which is phenomenal. Very low competition, 20 searches a month, whatever, that's fine. This one, I'm a little bit in the middle about. The KC score and all that is awesome. The only thing that concerns me about it, and I don't even know, when I first saw this shows you what I know about bowling, but when I read the results, what I came to realize is apparently these are some kind of like inserts that you would put in a ball, so it's like a product. Is that what a finger grip is?
Yep.
Okay, so maybe it's good to target, but I saw some what appear to be like e-commerce type results, like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
Go buy finger grips, which concerns me a little bit. So I didn't look at every one of these results, but this one here is how to glue in finger inserts. So it's more of a tutorial, which points to the good side to say, yeah, we should target this. So I would probably do it. If we had a bowling site, eventually you're going to run out of stuff to talk about. So I would have a page about it. I just, I wouldn't be like completely sold that I was going to jump right up there for it, just because my fear would be is that eventually it turns into more of an e-commerce keyword and we sort of get bumped out. The first thing is like a shopping page, that sort of thing. So that just goes back to kind of the same rule I was talking about earlier with the, I forget which one it was, the bags or whatever we were looking at, but a little bit of an e-commerce concern, but the KC score and stuff is awesome. So I might do it anyway, but we'd have to think about how we were going to approach it and kind of what kind of content we were going to create that made sense for it. So, maybe we create like a best of post, best finger grips for bowling balls, that sort of thing, and just do it that way and see what happens, and kind of rank for some of that stuff. So yeah, that one's somewhere in the middle for me. And then the last one, and I really like this one, drilling a bowling ball for more hook. And so is this talking about actually drilling into a bowling ball?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because bowling balls have these like weighted blocks in the middle of them. So where you choose to drill.
Your audio is getting a little, I don't know,
like I'm fading away.
Yeah, like bad signal.
I did just get some sort of weird pop-up that said that my internet connection just was not stellar. Do I sound any? Is it still bad? Or
are you still on America Online out there? Or? Actually, you sound a lot better now. It's been fixed.
Yeah. Just let me get my modem.
56K.
Yeah, let me plug my telephone line back in there.
Dude, if we've got like 20-year-olds listening to us right now, they have no idea.
No idea.
They don't know the struggle, man.
Oh my
Paying
God.
for internet by the hour like we did back at one time, or our parents did probably.
Oh, just waiting for a picture to load forever. It's just like line by line.
Ask your parents, kids.
That's
existed.
right. So old.
Yeah, we won't even talk about pre-internet days, man. It's ancient history. So actually physically drilling into a bowling ball, kind of changing the weight for. That's what I thought this was having to do with. This is a really good keyword. KC scored 21. is the average. We talked earlier about looking for page authority, at least 2 results under 30. There are, well, take the 1 out, I guess, and there are 2, 3, 4 of those, including the first one, which has a 9, which is awesome. A lot of pages with 0 links. I mean, it's good down the board, and it's just a good informational type keyword to teach somebody how to do that, and a good audience builder. And that's sort of the purpose I would see for that keyword. And then you also look at the titles here. This is sort of important. I talked about relevance, and relevance is such a big factor, but look at the second result. The page title is Layouts - Radical Bowling. What the heck is that? And I clicked on it. It's like a PDF or something. And maybe in their PDF they talk about it, but this is a horrible title and doesn't have anything to do with anything. I mean, it says bowling and that's it.
Yeah,
nothing about a hook, nothing about drilling, nothing about a ball, all of that. And so there's some of these, how do I make a ball hook? And I feel like a lot of the results are about that, but they aren't about drilling into a ball. And so a lot of these guys really are just totally missing it. And that's why I wanted to call out this one, because this is the perfect example of what I was talking about earlier with relevance. You found a really good keyword here, is that when you look and see this, like Google's job and Google's goal, I guess would be a better way to say it, is to provide the most relevant results to the person that's searching. And so when you can look as a human, you say, these results, they're not even what this person's searching for. I just kind of believe that Google figures that stuff out and they get better and better at that eventually. And so when I see, how to hook a bowling ball 10 steps from WikiHow, whatever, that's really not what this guy's asking. He's asking about how to drill his bowling ball to make it hook more. That's an irrelevant result. So even though it has like good authority, I'm like, whatever, I can move right past them because it's not focused on this search term. Does that make sense, that mentality of that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
And actually that keyword right there, like you could probably still work in affiliate product links in there because different balls have different like weight blocks inside of them. So
Gotcha.
I feel like you could still angle that in there naturally.
Yeah. No, definitely.
So yeah,
absolutely.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you can always do affiliate stuff in the context of your writing, and sometimes that performs even better. So like if you were talking about a specific tool that you need to do it or a specific weight, a lot of times I'll just be writing and after that paragraph I'll say, and change out, or, this is one of my favorite weights, and then have just like in parentheses, see an example here, and I'll link that to a product, and that sort of thing. So you can get clever about how you sort of sneak in product references and affiliate links. So yeah, absolutely, man.
Nice.
Cool. All right. So let's jump back to presentation. I got a couple more things I wanted to share with you, and then we'll wrap up. Is that all right?
Sounds great.
All right. Just so everybody knows, it's getting late here. I'm East Coast, Ryan.
I know.
Mountain time. So I'm past 11 p.m. now. We're doing a p.m. call for you guys because I found out that Spencer and Perrin are already like getting to their 4th call. And they told me I'm a call behind, which we don't really have like a hard and fast schedule. I was like, what the heck, guys? So anyway, I felt a little.
All right, we're underdogs already. Perfect.
Yes, yeah.
I like that.
After you guys talking to these people, don't they, they have lives or something? I got a working man here. Got to be sensitive to that. So anyway, but wanted to squeeze in this call this week for sure. But so if I start to lose my mind or talk crazy, you know what the deal is. It's bedtime. All right. So let me wrap up with a couple of slides here. And I think that hopefully this will be helpful for you. A lot of this stuff, Ryan, honestly, for me is like, it's stuff that I know in my head, and I've sort of just made some of this stuff. I've kind of made up these beliefs just through experience. It's just sort of my mental approach to how I think about these things, but I never really put them down on paper. So it was actually a good exercise for me and kind of challenging to like say, what, if I'm telling this to somebody else, like how do I explain this? And so hopefully just sort of letting you inside of my mind. And when I'm looking at keywords, the kinds of things I'm thinking about, I'm hoping that I can transfer that over to you. And so you start to take on this mentality. That's not to say that I'm perfect or whatever, the be all end all, but I do think it's helpful to sort of think about these things in certain ways to understand when you're staring at a keyword that's not just a keyword. You want to be thinking about what's that keyword going to do for my site? Like what's the end goal for that keyword? And that's what some of this is about. And so that's the first thing I have on here when I talk about mental approach to keywords is what kind of content am I going to create for that? And some of that probably came out when I was talking about the keywords that you sent over. But when I see a keyword, and sometimes I'll note it in Longtail Pro, or sometimes I just know it and I don't feel like, it's just me working on a site by myself. So I don't feel like I need to write it down because I know that I won't forget, but I'll see a keyword and like immediately know, is that a list? Is that like a 500 to 700 word article? Is that a buyer's guide? Is that, is that going to be an affiliate focused thing? What is it? Is that something I can turn into like a really nice shareable piece of content that I can do, some outreach with other folks in my niche and maybe get some links in return and that sort of thing. So like when I see that keyword, like I'm immediately thinking about, okay, there's the keyword. What kind of content am I going to create? And I want to have just a rough idea. And as I say, as you get a little bit more experience with this, kind of get your feet wet, you'll get there too. If you're not already, where you just know, you see that word, and you're like, yeah, I think that'll be turn into that kind of content and work really nicely. So you sort of just get this vision for what it's going to turn into. Second thing is thinking about how you're going to monetize. And so this is, closely related, but when I see how-to posts, and this is just easy answers, and we talked about maybe getting to the point where you do your own product, either physical or digital type product, and that, sort of a long-term thing. But early on, the easiest wins are using AdSense, the Google ads, to get pay-per-click money. That's the most hands-off way to monetize a site. I'm an AdSense fan. And then using affiliate sales, which can be Amazon for physical products, or there's tons of other affiliate stuff there as well. But when I see a how-to post, like the one we were talking about a minute ago, and you mentioned that there would be opportunities to include affiliate stuff there, but how to drill your bowling ball to make it hook more. To me, that is a how-to post. It's a tutorial. I'm showing somebody how to do something. It's kind of a specific question. It doesn't need to be a big, long article. And so AdSense is sort of the easy answer. I'm going to have a plugin that just has AdSense, puts it in the right spots on my site and that sort of thing. And we'll get to all that, but I don't even worry about it. I'm just like, whatever. I'm going to do that because I feel like it's easy traffic, like we talked about earlier. I'm going to have some AdSense on there. I'm going to get some clicks, And so that's my way of making money. The other is those buyer's guides, those best and comparison type things. And that's all about affiliate sales. And so we'll get into how we can structure those and just give you some ideas there. But again, you're thinking about from the outset, how am I going to monetize this? And then the other lists and those types of things are great for sharing on social media, great for attracting links from others. So it's good to get those in front of people that you want to sort of network with in your niche and that sort of thing. And so, there's some keywords that I'm not even worried about monetizing at all. And I've got plenty of stuff like that. And so I talked about that a little bit earlier, but it's important to note that, we're thinking about this thing as one big picture, and not every little spoke of the wheel needs to be about making money. We're going to have plenty of content that's really not directly tied to monetizing, but that stuff's really important for sharing and sort of, getting our name out there and getting authority to our site. And so it all sort of works together.
Right.
And then the next thing, mental approach to keywords, looking for patterns. And this is really important. It's going to help you go from, when you find a good keyword, not just stopping there, but seeing where else that can take you. And so I put a couple of sports related examples in here because I think it's an easy way to demonstrate it, but it could apply to just about anything. Let's just say, for instance, you find a keyword that's how to shoot like LeBron. Immediately, you should be thinking, okay, what's a similar keyword to that people might also be searching for? And the first one I thought of is somebody says how to shoot like Steph Curry, how to shoot like Kevin Durant. And so my thought is that when you see keywords like that are sort of celebrity or athlete type focused, the other one, what driver does Tiger Woods use? Check on Phil Mickelson and see what that keyword volume looks like in the competition. Start looking for the other related people. And so when you find a nice little, and you'll hit things like that, just like that example, what driver does Tiger Woods use? If I was doing a golf site, I'd be like, oh, that's a nice little keyword. You might find it's got whatever, 100 people are searching for it. And it's got low competition. Like, cool. Why stop there? Like, you just need to understand that a lot of times there is a pattern. And so if somebody's looking for it about Tiger Woods, there's probably a group of people looking for it for Ricky Fowler and all these other, famous golfers and that sort of thing. So take things out as far as you can take them. So when you find a good keyword, don't let it lie there. Go to Ubersuggest and say, what driver does, whatever, and let it fill in the blank for you and try to find some ideas there. So look for those patterns and you're going to build out some longer lists. And then ultimately think like the searcher. And this is critically important. We talked about this a moment ago. We were looking at the bowling lessons or something like that. And I kind of asked, if you were searching, what would you be looking for? And you really need to ask yourself that a lot when you're doing this, because ultimately it's a human that's going to be coming to the site. It's not a robot. It's not an algorithm. It's a person. What else do they want to know? And so to the previous point, what driver does Tiger Woods use? Okay. If I was going to use that keyword and write about it, I'm not just going to have a page that's titled "What drivers Tiger Woods use," and then it has like 5 words and it says the Nike Sumo driver. End of article. I mean, like you're going to add more to it than that. You think about them as a person, and okay, the person you're creating sort of a persona in your mind. What all stuff does that person want to know? Like they probably want to know other stuff about Tiger Woods, I'm assuming, other gear that he uses, like what types of golf balls he uses and other equipment, maybe his bag and some other things in there. So like when I sort of put myself in their shoes, I can make a better picture, and ultimately it helps me create better content because I understand that person. I really know what they're trying to get at. And that's the next point, is what's the root problem that I can solve? Like if they're looking for a driver, maybe they want to know more about how to hit the ball further and that sort of thing. So you're sort of creating this image of who this person is and what the real root of the problem is. So it's not all just about, oh, here, let me answer your immediate search. I want to connect to that person. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. Good. So, yep. So I just put through in a couple of examples from your actual keywords, and then we'll wrap up here. So one, best baseball bags. So basically I'm just taking this, kind of applying the stuff that I just talked about to 2 examples that you gave me to kind of hopefully help the rubber meet the road for you a little bit. So best baseball bags, looking at that keyword, I would go, once I found that and I feel like, yeah, that's a pretty good keyword, I'd probably target it like we talked about. I would go add 4 and find related ideas. So I would run over to Uber Suggest, say best baseball bags 4, suggest, and see what happens. And there's probably all kinds of those buyer footprints that I showed you earlier. There's probably a bunch of them. There's probably for little kids. There's probably for, I don't even know, but there's probably a dozen or more situations that people are looking for. And like we talked about earlier, that might ultimately lead to us creating the ultimate guide to picking the perfect baseball bag. But then inside of that, now I've got a bunch of really good ideas for sort of sub categories on that one big guide that I can fill in. And so, take that idea out to its end. And then ultimately, like I said, create the ultimate guide with affiliate links, et cetera, would be my initial thought for how I would monetize that keyword. And then finally, drilling a bowling ball for more hook, a definite how-to. AdSense is the easiest choice to monetize, like I talked about. You just write a solid article. Doesn't need to be long because, longer content tends to rank better in general. But when you find these really low competition keywords like this, 500 to 700 words is plenty, because there's only so much you can write about with some of these things, so it just doesn't make sense. If somebody has a pretty specific question, I'm not going to turn that into 2,000 words, because then it just gets ridiculous. So you can answer that probably in maybe 500 words and give them the steps they need to take, the tools they need, et cetera, wrap it up, call it a day. I've got a couple of AdSense ads on there, and as I start to rank, some people are going to click on them. I make a little bit of money. But again, going back to the very first point we started with, it's about that overall collection of keywords. And so that one little article isn't going to, have you quitting your night job. But when we throw together like 100 of those, and 15 of them are these buyer's guides that rank well and get affiliate products, and 40 of them, are really good how-to tutorial AdSense guides, and 15 of them are really good for social sharing and have really helped us get links to our site that, help those other articles we just talked about rank better, and another dozen are just stuff that makes sense and, audience connection type stuff. You start to see sort of the big picture of how it all works together, and you ultimately get to that point. You can build out something, something that's really profitable for you. So hopefully this was helpful. I think that's the last thing I had on the side. Do you have any questions about that as far as the last couple of things I covered there, the mental approach and that sort of stuff?
No, this is all good stuff. One question that I did kind of coming up a little bit is when you start, targeting like affiliate keywords like best baseball bags. I mean, where it kind of makes sense if your site is reviewing best baseball bags, it's like you should be reviewing almost everything across the board to a certain degree.
Right.
Where do you draw the line on that? Or I know you don't want to like flood your website with affiliate links and things like that. So do you just...
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Well, let me answer what I think I know you're saying.
Okay.
Tell me if that's what you're saying. What I usually do, some people will go into reviewing like every single model and have a page for like every bag known to man and all that. Mm-hmm. And I don't do that, or at least I haven't done that to this point. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to do, but usually for me, I put like all my effort into creating what I feel like, and that's why I call them buying guides, because I think that helps me shape the mentality of it's not just about pitching that person a product. It's about, if I'm buying this bag, what are the considerations I need to know? What are the variables, the different types and the different costs and price ranges and those sorts of things. So I think about it as educating a potential buyer, and that's sort of what I lead with. And then ultimately I get into sort of hand picking, either based on personal experience or based on other reviews online. And when that's the case, you just be upfront about that to say, let's say that they've got reviews on Dick's Sporting Goods website and that sort of thing, and it's whatever, Jim from Missouri who's reviewing this bag. I'll quote Jim from Missouri and say, he's a buyer, dicksportinggoods.com. Jim said this, that sort of thing. And so I sort of, in the process of that, I kind of curate like my thoughts and what I see and some description type stuff along with some of the other information I find online. So I feel like what the mentality I think is like, I'm sort of doing the research for them online and packaging it in like a really efficient way to where somebody who's actually thinking about buying this can come here and get all they need to know, including the top 3 or 4 options that are out there. And I'm going to kind of give the most common pros and cons and some of the things you'll hear and that sort of thing. And so inside of that one enormous buyer's guide, typically I will have some small, 400 word or so review of the top 3 or 4 products that I'm recommending to them. So I actually have that all on one page. And what I found is that a lot of times I will rank for product keywords. So like a specific, Easton XZ37 backpack bag or something like that. Mm-hmm. I found that I can rank for keywords like that by just having it as part of my enormous buying guide. So I don't worry about creating my own page for the Easton bag.
Gotcha. Okay.
At least that's how I do it. So
cool.
But yeah. Any other questions or anything about anything we covered or just anything you've come across at this point?
Yeah, I think we covered most questions I had.
Okay, cool. So at this point, we're wrapping up, and I just want to give Ryan sort of a, assignment for what to do from here, and then just let you guys know what's next. And so, as you know, we said at the beginning of the call, Ryan dove a little bit deeper into the bowling and baseball niches, which are the two that we're sort of deciding between. Ryan's deciding between. I want to make that clear. Ultimately, this is Ryan's site. Okay, Ryan is going to own this site. So ultimately, this stuff is Ryan's call. I'm here as sort of an advisor and a coach, but this will all be Ryan's deal. So when I say I think of us as a team, but this is your baby, man. So I'm just here to help.
All right.
But so you got final say on anything we do.
Very good.
Yeah. So that said, so Ryan's close to making a decision. So we're planning on doing the next week. So maybe on the next call we'll announce that. If not, the call after that. But the plan from here is that our next call is going to be very content focused. And so in between this call and the next, Ryan is going to take the stuff that we talked about today and build out that keyword list to be much, much larger to, get us a long list of keywords in the niche that he wants to pursue. And so we're going to start building out that list based on this exact criteria. And then the next call, I'm going to introduce Ryan to the Thrive Content Builder and Thrive Themes, which we're going to be using for the site. Really, really cool stuff. And it's going to make Ryan's job much, much easier for creating actually really cool looking content. So I'm going to introduce that to him and then also just talk some content theory, I guess. Give him some ideas about types of content that goes beyond just writing a 1,500 word article. Some, engaging type stuff that you can do that doesn't take a lot of time. It's really going to help us build out our site pretty quickly. So I'm actually excited about that call. So the next time we get together is going to be a content focused call. And at that point, behind the scenes, we'll be ready to start rocking and rolling and building some content and getting this thing up and running. So pretty exciting stuff, right?
Definitely. I'm ready to get it going.
Yeah, me too, man. All right. Well, thanks for listening in, everybody. If you're still with us, if you've listened to the entire 1 hour and 17 minutes, go treat yourself to a dessert or something special. It's really weird. I'm looking at this clock. I think our last call was 1 hour and 17 minutes, which we're about to do again. And I'm going to double check that. And if that's the case, we need to go buy a Powerball ticket or something. This is nuts.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, Ryan. Well, we'll cut the recording here, man, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.
See you.